Raquel, at the beginning of this ELT chat, Google Cardboard was mentioned by one of the chatters. Could you tell us a little bit more about Google Cardboard and what it is used for?
Sure. Well, the Google Cardboard is actually this made of cardboard material with lenses. And this was devised so that the VR experience could be cheaper and therefore used in education. Just to explain the principle, what we do is we have a mobile phone and then we fit it here. And then via a YouTube video recorded in 360 degrees or maybe a cardboard app, the student or anyone can have an immersive VR experience.
Okay, thank you, Raquel. I've got another question for you. Later on in the chat, the topic was about how things like Google Cardboard and these headsets could be used in the English language classroom. And one of the participants, called Sergio Lorca, talked about how his students used to love using Google Expeditions, where they had to do a role play activity describing places that they visit. Then Carol Rainbow on the chat then asked the pedagogical question, well, what do they actually do whilst they're actually exploring? And he said that it was actually after the tour that every group describes the place and presents this orally to the rest of the class. You then said, well, what they do depends on the students' levels, and you gave the example of, say, a 6-year-old or a class of 6-year-olds visiting a 360-degree view of some elephants and then describing that afterwards. So could you tell us a bit more about your experience, say, with very young learners and using VR headsets?
Sure. Thank you for the question. That's very important. Indeed, it all depends on the student's level of English. So, for instance, what was mentioned in the chat, it's very successful when you have students intermediate level onwards to virtually visit different locations and then describe to each other, or maybe while describing using one key topic they are learning. For instance, I had an advanced group and then like one student visited the pyramids in Cairo and the other visited the location in outer space, and they had to share how different that experience was using the passive reporting of verbs, which was the target language for that precise lesson. But then when you consider the 6-year-old students, like mentioned, they've got word level vocabulary. So they can say, I can see an elephant, or look, an elephant. And of course, they show the surprise, because if you get the video from like this forest in Africa, and suddenly there's a giraffe or elephants or lions, so this element of surprise as well as they turn. And of course, it's important to attach the production to the level of students and their age range.
Okay, thank you for that, Raquel. One of the participants, Sean, argued that just as well as using video on a phone, normal video on a phone, he argued that the immersive element doesn't actually add much to the language activity. Do you agree, or do you slightly disagree with the view that the immersive part doesn't add anything?
I think we've got points here. Of course, simply stating it's just another video experience that you've got, maybe the sense of being to the place, but it all depends on how this is directed as an activity. So this is a point I agree with him, of course. I had last year a group of students visit the hurricane, one hurricane that had happened in the USA. And a person who was, while the hurricane was happening, was able to have some footage of everything going on. So the students could experience the sensation, because the lesson was about natural disasters. And then we don't have this kind of natural disaster in Brazil. Thanks God, we have others, but not that in particular. So after experiencing this somehow using the Google Cardboard, they could enhance their perception. And then while talking to each other about what they had seen, it somehow interfered in a positive way. It changed their perception. But that's it. It all depends on the usage that you give to it. For instance, when I had students visiting Turkey or Egypt, like how often do people in Brazil get to visit those places? That's not common. And then I think there's certainly an effect, and it's important.
So what I seem to understand from what you're saying is that the benefits of this immersive experience, especially for younger learners, is that they are more able to describe the feelings and the experience of going to a different place,
and
which they wouldn't do just by watching a video. They get some additional benefits from that experience, which is about feeling, maybe empathy with people, survivors of a hurricane, or different places, or what it's like deep sea diving. Maybe it's about, and then describing those feelings to the class or in a follow-up activity afterwards.
Yeah, it's describing the feeling and having somehow a memory register of an experience that they wouldn't have, that maybe they might have that in the future, but more often than not, possibly not.
Hey, sis.
Hey, Jack. Are you all excited for our trip?
Yeah, and look what I found.
This is so cool. Is this the same spot we're going to?
I hope so. And look, I think that's where we're taking the boat tour.
Oh, I love it. Look, I'm gonna go chat with Melissa, but you're setting up the party room, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Great. See you later, Jack.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
And when they leave the classroom with this experience feeling, the learner experience has been playing a very important role in English language teaching.
You could pick anywhere in the world that you want to go. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to the moon. Thailand, ancient Greece,
India.
To Nigeria, my homeland.
one or maybe all of the 7 wonders of the world. When you explore different places, you have the chance to actually learn something new.
You want to be able to show the kids that there's something outside of your community that you could go to and learn from, and that there's other places you can visit.
Are we in China?
This is the Great Wall of China.
We got to see the place itself, so we could actually understand what she was talking about.
How long would it take to walk the length of the Great Wall of China? So much more enriching than just showing them a picture or just having them read about it.
This device can actually make us go to places that we've never been before.
It brings the lesson to you.
You have to see it for yourself to believe it.
There's so much other places to see, so you know that it's never going to end.
This is what you might get in a classroom. Students wandering around. There are certain dangers to that. One of the things is that you see people actually walking around, bumping into things. They don't realize that with spherical video, there's no point in moving. You can look around in 360 degrees, but if you see something in front of you, as you walk towards it, the distance always remains the same. So you can't walk through a door. But it is a way of breaking out of that isolation of the experience, because they can still hear the teacher's voice, they can still hear each other, and you can use this for a short 5-minute session and then get them doing something where they are face-to-face and interacting with each other.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I tried my headset for the very first time yesterday, and the first video I watched was from The Guardian, and it was a 360-degree immersive video of a party. It's a 16-year-old girl with autism, and she was giving a running commentary of what it's like to be at a party. It was actually her mum's party in her home, and all of these visitors coming, and how she felt in that environment. and so you kind of were able to experience it through her eyes, if you like,
Yeah.
as she gave the running commentary, which you wouldn't necessarily get from a two-dimensional video or a description on paper activity. So
Exactly.
I could see where potentially it might be used for the classroom, because it's about being able to empathize and to relive or experience the same experiences as somebody else, what it's like to be them, either in a different situation or with a disability or condition, or in another part of the world which you never have the opportunity to go to.
Yeah. This you mentioned, Phil, just reminded me of another experience, because I've been working with this researching since the end of 2015. And I register everything I do, and I record videos, and I write impressions and everything. And there was this group of students, basic level, very, very basic level students, adult learners, and they had never left the country. And there was one man once, and I said, okay, this is a little bit of London. And he was so happy. Oh, really? And I could feel the real challenge for us is to go beyond the feeling and get the student to produce the target language. Because, we need to go beyond the feeling. Yeah. And then it's important to set the task beforehand. And it's also important that the teacher is next to this student, or maybe they work in pairs, because the task must be really defined so the student understands and gets to produce the language which is appropriate to their level while experiencing the VR, or maybe afterwards. It all depends on what you have in mind. Because otherwise it's just going to be, wow, this is cool, that's great, but you're not going to attach the usage of VR to a meaningful language learning experience.
Okay, that's wonderful, Raquel. Thank you for your really full answers to those questions today that came out of the ELTchat, which took place in November. The full summary is on my blog and has been shared. Also mentioned in the summary was the IATEFL conference, pre-conference event, the ELTcig event, which you can find more information about on the IATEFL website. And if you use Facebook, the ELTcig group and page has more information about this post-conference event, and also shows the 6 speakers that have been booked for this event, including our very own Raquel. So I'll see you there, Raquel.